Hello, everybody. Okay, we are going to talk about the cycle here. Today I get to bring up what the actual problem is. It's actually every single person's problem. So this problem that we know has a solution, this solution that we're going to be talking about is a solution to every single human problem. You get what that means? Every single situation that a person's in, regardless of addiction to different things, depression, anxiety, drugs, alcohol, all these different ailments that people are trying to get well and are suffering from, there's a solution to every human need, and that solution is God. You don't have to be a drug addict, alcoholic to surrender your life to God and experience God in a way which will treat your sick spirit and help your outlook straighten out your mind, and your body will just fall in place and you'll be living a very healthy life. You don't have to be a drug addict, alcoholic for that to experience what God. Many people are just struggling with depression and anxiety and different things. But a drug addict, alcoholic, they're on the verge of dying. And their life is a tragedy, and they're causing so much pain in every single direction. So we're at like a crossroads in our lives and a turning point where something has to happen fast. And come to find out, the same solution that will work for any other problem just so happens to work for alcoholism and drug addiction. What a surprise, right? So that's all we're doing here. Anybody who is able to realize that you were created for a certain purpose, and that is for God, and to have an intimate relationship with God. And if you don't experience that here on this earth, you're not going to feel the wholeness and the fulfillment that you were created to experience. And that's all it is. It has nothing to do with, that poor alcoholic addict, they need God more than the next person. And we need God absolutely on a daily basis, but not any more than anybody else. See, that's what this is clear cut. The solution to this is God. So let's break that down a little bit, okay? So once we understand the cycle right here that came out of the big book, and we put it here in an easy visual format so you can kind of see your life in it. This cycle that I was stuck on and couldn't get off. I was blocked off from God's power. I was trying to get out on my own power. I would try to stay away, and for a time I would, but I would be just coming apart on the inside. And I kept going back because of what was going on internally. My spirit was sick, and I was living a very selfish life, and because of selfishness, I'm sick to my inner core, and I couldn't get off this cycle. I would try to move. I would try to get a different girlfriend. I thought maybe having a kid would help, and all these different things that I've tried. And nothing would help because I was lacking the power to get off the cycle. Once I started the process of surrendering to that power, which is God, I've never been the same. All I was doing is just finally coming into this realization of what I was actually created for, and that's for God. So this cycle comes out of the doctor's opinion of the big book, and I'll just read it real fast and then we'll go on. At the bottom of page XXVIII, it says, like the third line down to the bottom, I just want to show you where this picture that we post every week and talk about all the time, where it actually came from. Okay? So doctor's opinion, XXVIII, bottom of the page. It says, to them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. You know, we're trying to fix what's going on internally. We're trying to treat our sick spirit with alcohol and drugs, which actually worked at a time. Now it doesn't work so well. We have all these consequences that are making life unbearable. We keep emerging remorseful, making firm resolutions that turn into broken promises as we try to, on our own power, stay away. And then trying as long as we can, we're bombarded with this mental obsession and the lie that this time will be different, but once I put it in my body, the same old thing always happens is what? I don't have control over how much I use, at least at times, and then I go on a spree and I face more truth and consequences. And I repeat this over and over again. So this portion is where this came from. So because our alcoholic life seems the only normal one, we keep trying to treat this internal spiritual condition with alcohol. That's our only go-to. So we don't know anything else. So our alcoholic life seems the only normal one. People are scratching their head like, you're still going back to alcohol and drugs? Look at how a mess you are. What do you think? And then it's a form of insanity that we're going to need God's help with, right? So they are restless, irritable, and discontented. That's what these RIDs mean. I am restless, irritable, and discontented, right? Unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. What am I getting ease and comfort from? From this internal condition that's kicking my butt. The spiritual malady, along with the mental obsession, just constantly thinking, who's got it? Where can I get it? How can I lie? How can I get the money? How can I get it? You know? And then this body piece, once I put it in, I have no control. And I face all these terrible consequences. Just terrible things, misery. So I get ease and comfort from this spiritual malady and the bombardment of the mental obsession. So that's why my alcoholic life seems the only normal one. It's the only way I know to treat it. Until I found another way of treating it, which is with a relationship with God and doing the things of God. So I get that sense of ease and comfort. That's what I keep going back to. That's why my alcoholic life seems the only normal one, right? Drinks which they see others taking with impunity. That's super important. Not everybody's an alcoholic addict. Some people can control it. Some people don't have the phenomenon of craving once they put it in their system. And at least most of the time, they want more and more and more and more. And the consequences don't come into our consciousness. We don't even think about the consequences. That's not every single person. So when we see people, especially after being removed for a time from the drugs and alcohol, and you see your cousin and your friend and whoever enjoying a couple beers at a ball game, it starts to thinking, wow, I see them. They seem to, they're going to go home tonight and kiss their wife and show up to work tomorrow. And now if you're not careful, if you're not staying active in your spiritual path and program, you'll start to consider these things. I've been removed for a while because after all, we're seeing other people having drinks and doing things with impunity without the consequences that we seem to have. So after they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, see, the body piece that not everybody has, what happens then? They pass through the well-known stages of a spree and hidden consequences and truths in your life, and then what? If you're lucky enough or blessed enough, they emerge remorseful. Here we go. How many times have I done that? Emerge remorseful. Oh, I can't believe I did it again. We make firm resolution not to drink again, not to use again. I know I promised this before, but I really mean it this time. I'm going to lose you. I'm going to lose this. My job's on the line. And then it says what? But this is repeated over and over unless this person can experience an entire psychic change. There is very little hope of his or her recovery. So what do? We do this over and over and over again. Our only go-to to treat this internal condition that we probably didn't even know we had is disconnection from our Creator. This is what everybody needs to know. All we're trying to do here for the solution to fix alcoholism and drug addiction and any other human ailment is to connect with your Creator. This is what you were created to do on a daily basis. Connect with your Creator, surrender to His will instead of your will. Right? And when this happens, then all of a sudden, we're recovered from this. Why? Why are we recovered? Why don't we just keep repeating it over and over and over again? Because we found the replacement that alcohol and drugs used to do. Alcohol and drugs was our only normal life. The only thing we ever knew to treat this internal condition was alcohol and drugs. But we found that if we just step into what we were created to do is to know our Creator, all of a sudden alcoholism and drug addiction is no longer a problem in that person's life. Crazy. Let's go to some scripture that breaks it down, okay? I'm going to read Psalms 24:1. You don't have to follow me if you don't want, but you can if you want. I'm going to jump around to give you some scriptures to back this up. because the problem's been solved, and the solution is God. So we need to break down what that actually means so we can understand and give a clear-cut a path and approach to not be stuck on this cycle. Like, this is amazing. And this isn't some weird thing, AA got this from the Bible. All it is just to be clear, all it is having a relationship with God. That's all it is. And come to find out, wow, so that would solve this worldwide plague of addiction that no one seems to have an answer for? Yeah, that's the answer. Wow, ding, it makes perfect sense. And that's the answer for any human ailment, by the way. Right? That's what we're talking about here. Psalm 24:1, it says this. We got to remember some of this stuff, guys. The earth is the Lord's and all its fullness, the world and those that dwell therein. Little King James for you. The world is the Lord's in all of its fullness, and guess what else is the Lord's? And everything that dwells within this world. Everything that He created, it's all His. Except if we're not understanding these things and we're living in a selfish outlook, prideful ways of the world life, we're not living as if we belong to God. Once we come to this realization that we were created by God and we belong to God, and the only point of us being alive is to have a personal relationship with Him, and that will solve any ailment that ever comes our way in life, and all of a sudden we're able to handle life on life's terms, and we have an answer for any problem that life throws at us, when before we had to just cower over here in a corner, defeated and beat down and stuck on this cycle and couldn't get off. Right? So what about Colossians 1:16? Just to hit home the fact that God is the creator of all of us, and let's see why He created us. Colossians 1:16. Here it goes. Give you a minute to turn there. Colossians 1:16. So, for through Him, Christ, right? God created everything in the heavenly realms and on earth. Okay, so once again, God created everything in this world, in the heavenly realms and on the earth. That includes you and me, right? Just to make sure you guys aren't excluded from that. He made the things we can see and the things we can't see, such as thrones, kingdoms, and rulers, and authorities in the unseen world, right? Everything was created through Him and for Him. I love that verse. Everything was created by Him and what? And for Him. So everything in this world, unseen and seen, all of us, everything was created for God. So you and me, our only point of being created was for Him. Now He's been patient. He's given us time to bump our heads, to live prideful, to live selfish lives, to desire the things of the world, selfish pleasure. And He's given us this opportunity to now turn to Him and realize that we weren't created to live for ourselves and play God. We were only created for Him. And that's when we surrender to that and we start to get to know God and we have a relationship with God, our spirit gets treated, and now we're not so spiritually sick, disconnected from our Creator, and now all of a sudden we straighten out. Our life straighten out. That's all the big book's about, is connecting you with God. Right? So, let's turn to some more of these examples out of this book right here. The good book and the big book. You guys don't have it. Sorry about that, but I'm just going to read a couple portions out of here. This is a book that's talking about the roots of AA and what was really going on when AA first started and first got together. And they had a huge influence by a Bible-based Oxford group. And they're talking about where some of these ideas and principles came that was later put in the big book. Okay, so this really was exciting for me. On page 134 out of the good book and the big book by Dick B., top of the page it says, Silkworth, talking about Dr. Silkworth, who wrote the doctor's opinion, okay, says this: thus concluded that the alcoholic is restless, irritable, and discontented unless and until he seeks and obtains the illusory, meaning fake, false, the illusory and often fatal solution of peace through alcohol. So there's this illusion that we have. That's why our alcoholic life seems the only normal one. We're seeking that ease and comfort that we found in drugs and alcohol that's treating our internal condition. The internal condition that really can only be treated by a personal, intimate relationship with God, because He created us for Him. And that's all this is about. Is this an intimate relationship with God? It's not, because I'm struggling with drugs and alcohol, I'm kind of weird and I'm different. No, every single human being just needs to understand that you were created for God. And you need to surrender to that and to His will and get to know your Creator. And your life's going to go a whole lot more smooth. Like, things are going to happen, tragedy, death, different things are going to happen. And God even helps us and teaches us so much through the hard times. And we grow spiritually even. It's a win-win with God. But your life's so much, my life, let me speak for myself, is so much easier. Dude, I got beat down out there because I was playing God and living for myself and was a knucklehead. Didn't want to listen and had a hard time surrendering and taking direction, and anything uncomfortable, I'd run. If I had any angle, a dirty couch at the end, I'm running. And I had to stop running and really let God work on me. So he's saying that we just keep chasing this fake peace and this illusion that alcohol is our only answer, is our only normal life. Okay. Now, Bill Wilson's principal religious teacher, he's talking about Bill Wilson, the founder, and who he was listening to early on was this guy, Reverend Sam Shoemaker Jr. Okay? Here's some of the stuff that he was teaching Bill early on. It says, now the thing which is striking about much of the misery one sees is that it is spiritual misery. Okay? The important fact of a lot of our struggles and trouble, not all of them, is the spiritual misery that we don't even recognize probably that we're going through. And we're not going to be okay unless we address that spiritual condition, the spiritual healing that we need, the spiritual component that's always been missing. This is what we're going after. That's when a person actually changes and heals. Without the spiritual component, you're never going to get better. And it's going to say this here. I'll read it. It is the sadness of maladjustment to the eternal things. It is the sadness of the maladjustment to the eternal things. We're not knowing our Creator. We're not, with His help, having an eternal outlook on life. We're living life for ourselves according to the ways of the world, selfish-based lives. And fun and thrilling at times, over time, we become so spiritually sick because of it that we're in a spiritual bankruptcy of misery. And we wonder, we move, we try this, we do the other, and nothing gets better. And we wonder because we're not addressing the spiritual component of it. Okay? And now it says this. So remember, we have the wrong outlook. We have an earthly outlook on things, selfish-based. And this throws out the whole focus of life. Rest, cures, and exercise and motor drives will not help. We can try all these different things. We can go see a psychologist. We can exercise more, get away, just clear our mind, start over, get a new girlfriend, all these other things, but we're not addressing the spiritual problem, the spiritual disease and sickness that we have, that only God can treat, right? The only thing that will help is religion. This is Sam Shoemaker saying this, the guy that counseled Bill early on. For the root of the malady, you ready? The root of this spiritual malady, the problem that we're dealing with is what? Is estrangement from God. It's estrangement from God. Separation from God and your Creator. How close were all of us to God? Were we living surrendered lives to God? Were we following His will? Were we literally playing God ourselves, living according to the world standards and what we were drawn to? Selfish, pleasure, chasing, based lives. Party. Tuesday night. Party. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every day. Party. Okay? Estrangement from God. Let's get into the root of this, guys. If you're wondering, or anybody's wondering what your problem is, it's estrangement from God. What does that mean? Your disconnection from God. You're not in close relationship with God. You're never going to be okay, really. You're a stranger. Yeah. You need to know your Creator because He created you, right? And created me, right? For what? For what purpose?
For other people.
For Him.
Oh, for Him.
And now He does want us to be available to other people. He uses people to get to other people. Absolutely. That's a big part of all this thing. Making ourselves available for others. So what? So that we stay healthy in our spirit, in our mind, right? Okay. So, it said it right there. Estrangement from Him in people that were made to be His companions. What you want is simply a vital religious experience. You need to find God. You need Jesus Christ. Okay? These are the guys that helped launch AA. Here it says in the book, big book on page 64, we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. We got to get to the root of what's going on here. Yeah, we're sick mentally, we're sick physically, but the root of it is a spiritual sickness and illness that only God can fix. It's estrangement from God and our Creator. It ain't about like, okay, well, I'm just going to go try to stay away from drugs and alcohol. And because drugs and alcohol is the problem, that's what's causing all the truth and consequences in my life. But you're missing the point. The point is your real problem is your estrangement from God and your lack of a relationship with your Creator. So now it's like, well, I don't know about this recovery stuff and this AA stuff, and it's too much for me, and I'm going to go live my life and stay away and hold my job. But the thing is, if you don't have a close relationship with God, you're never going to be okay. Especially guys like us. So, on page 135 out of the good book in the big book, it says, the spiritual problem, as Shoemaker characterized it, was estrangement from and the lack of contact with God through Christ. And though others today have put a different interpretation on the nature of the spiritual problem, that's interesting, right? There appears to be agreement with Bill Wilson's description of alcoholism as a three-part disease: physical, mental, and spiritual. Okay? Our question concerns the biblical roots, if any, from which AA sources identified the spiritual problem. A problem epitomized by the big book's cry, and here it is, that there was a need for the seemingly hopeless alcoholic to what? To find God and to find Him now. So this is stuff right out of the big book, okay? Page 136, and then we'll move on. This is a quote from St. Augustine, okay? St. Augustine wrote, here's the King James, so hold tight. Thou madest us for thyself, and our heart is restless until it repose in thee. So, we're gonna stay restless, irritable, and discontented until we come to the realization and we start making steps in the right direction to what we were created for. I don't know how people hold it together out there. That's not even the topic. That's not even, bless them. Bless their hearts. They're in trouble, a lot of them. Guys like us have come to a turning point in our lives, and we better choose God or we're going to get death. This is way beyond recovery. This is going to keep us recovered, of course. But are you going to choose what you were created for? You're created for Him. And if you don't surrender to that, and you don't have your own personal relationship with God, you're going to remain restless, irritable, and discontented. And you're going to keep going back to things, and you're going to be miserable. Right? And Augustine said it. Another one of his quotes says, "The emptiness, loneliness, homesickness, wistfulness, wonderment, which all men feel at some time, is a hollow place in the human soul that God is meant to fill." Only God can feel what we've been looking for and seeking for. We've looked other places. We've tried to find it in drugs and alcohol and girls and the things of the world. And we think that if we can just remove ourselves from drugs and alcohol and clean up our life a bit, that we're going to be okay. But without a daily relationship with our Creator, what we're doing is just opposing what we were created for. We got to stop fighting and playing God and opposing what we were created for. This is way beyond like addiction. This is what we need God to be to recover from addiction and stay off the cycle. We do, but this is way beyond that. And there's a couple more verses I'll end with that have this promise of what happens, the goodness of God that you experience, the goodness that I've experienced in a simple life, and sometimes getting in my head and desiring this or thinking I'm missing out over here or there and seeing what other people have and all these things that I'm attacked with, But man, if I can just throw that aside and capture those rebellious thoughts, make them obedient to the Word of God and trust God and keep putting my trust and faith in God. He is so good to me. He has changed me. He has led me in a peaceful life where I'm a son now, a father, a friend. I mean, geez, I have so much good in my life. And I want to hold on to those promises. A couple verses. Song of Solomon. Okay? Very controversial book. But if you understand that the Song of Solomon is depicted as a love relationship between a man and a woman, but really it's a relationship between Jesus and his church, his bride. So Jesus and us. And if you see Song of Solomon like that, it's really going to open your eyes. So some of the promises that I've experienced just doing what I was, thank for your grace, God, and your patience, and putting me in a place to hear this truth and being ready, and men who helped me on this path. And all I'm doing is surrendering to what I was created for. This isn't extraordinary. This isn't some fanatical recovery thing. I was created by God for him, and now I'm just in that process of surrendering to that, and I've never been the same. So here are some promises we'll end with. Song of Solomon, chapter 1:7. Tell me, O you whom my soul loves. I'm talking to God, and he loved me first, and now my eyes have been opened. I can love him back, and I have this love relationship with God. You see this in Song of Solomon. Where do you pasture your flock? Where do you make it lie down at noon? He brings me to these good pastures. He brings me to this goodness in my life. He makes me come and lie down at noon, at the hottest part of the day when the sun's scorching. He brings me over into the shade when life's getting rough and I don't know where to turn and what to do. I can go to him and spend time with him. He's my good shepherd, right? Psalms 23:2, where he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters, right? Back to Song of Solomon 1:7. For why should I be like one who is veiled beside the flock of your companions? I don't want to be that person that is veiled and can't see the goodness of God, can't see why I would surrender to what I was only created for. I was created for him, to know him. That's where all this stuff stems from. I just found drugs and alcohol to mask my suffering from being separated from my Creator. And I found drugs and alcohol to treat that. So it's I don't want to be veiled and not see the goodness of God and the importance of surrendering my life to him. It says, why should I be the one left out, outside the orbit of your tender care? I don't want to be left out of his tender care. He's wide open. He's calling me. How about Song of Solomon 2:3? In his shade I took great delight and sat down. Man, he called me out of the rough patches of life. I go spend time with him. He comforts me, and if I can quiet my mind enough and stick at it, he talks to me and gives me his word to encourage me and others in my life. And he sits me down in the shade. And check this out. And his fruit was sweet and delicious to my palate. Verse 4. He has brought me to his banqueting place, and his banner over me is love waving overhead to protect and comfort me. He brings me in, and he loves on me, and I get to eat of him, his word, his fruit, his spirit comes, and this fruit of his spirits through my life. And all of a sudden I have more gentleness than I had when I'm, and out of my head and letting him live through me, and more kindness and the faithfulness and all this of the fruit of his spirits living out of my life. And I get to banquet with him and eat with him and break bread with other brothers and sisters in Christ, and we learn from each other. Like, I found the answer, what I was looking for all along, and it solved the alcoholism, drug addiction answer, and will solve any other human ailment. And it's a personal relationship with God, and surrendering to him on a daily basis and letting him use my life to affect other people's lives. End of story. We'll see y'all next week.